In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. In the time of censorship, non-compliance is key. From an undisclosed location in FEMA Region 10, it's your host, Joshua Michael.
Welcome, folks. It is May 26, 2023, day before Saturday. You guys are going to be listening to this on Saturday's show. We had some technical issues last week, and our show did not air, and it was a rather powerful show. It was amazing. We got the most traffic and everything else. As you know, we're talking about the Solomon YUE recall and why we should all support it and why every county in this state should do it. We got a lot of pushback from the Sol and his swamp creatures this week in regards to, you know, why we should keep Sol. And so anyways, long and short, if you guys want to check that out, go to noncompliantamerica.com. And you can check out last week's show. But this week's show is going to be jam-packed with tons of information, what's going on locally. This is what we want to focus on. We have them in our sights. They are panicking and they're freaking out. And it's a beautiful sight to see because we're just getting started, folks. We're just getting started. So I got a special guest, two special guests today. I have Don Powers in the house and Ben Edtl from Washington County. We're here to talk about the walkouts. We want to talk about the Recall Sol movement and some of the things going on with the momentum with that, as well as just kind of open the conversation with what's to come, what the state of Oregon is, and where we can really focus our attention and where we can really make a change and make an impact. So how you doing today, Ben?
Yeah, I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know you had to, jump over the barbed wire and get past the guard dogs, but you made it.
That's right. I'm trained in those techniques.
That's good. And we got Don, too. Don rolled in here on two wheels in his truck just to make sure that he can make the show because we're here, we're committed, and it's very important that we're able to get this stuff out, we're able to flush this information out. We want you guys to know with open transparency what's going on and how we can make an impact. And like we talked about last week and the week before, is the most important thing, I think, right now is to become a PCP in your county, which whatever county you're in, become a PCP, and you can actively engage in some of these votes that are happening behind the scenes in regards to the party. But in that, Ben, I want to talk about the walkout.
Yep.
You've been front and center with that. I know you were contending against Wagner, and we wouldn't be in this situation contending against these. The Republicans wouldn't be able to be dealing with these guys had you gotten in. They're kind of changing their tone a little bit and coming to you and talking to you now, right?
It's been a real change of tone. It really has. And I'm really grateful for it because, look, I think that I've got both perspectives. I have the perspective of being an activist. Obviously, in 2020, when the bioweapon was released and the government turned against its citizens, especially its business owners, by shutting us down and taking away our wealth and our assets and our power. For me, that was, and we're coming in on a Memorial Day weekend, and my grandfather was a naval fighter pilot in World War II, and at 17 years old, he signed up for the war after Pearl Harbor. And in 2020, I try to explain to people that that was our Pearl Harbor. That was our generation's Pearl Harbor. And it was either you were going to fight for our country or you were going to not fight for our country. But most of us and a lot of us have begun to fight for our country. And
that's a great analogy.
It is. It's our Pearl Harbor. And so I was asleep. And I woke up and I said, I'm going to fight this enemy. And so since 2020, I've been an activist. I founded Free Oregon. And I thought if it was just me and the dog, I'm going after Kate Brown. And what happened is we put together about 25,000 Oregonians to push back. And in part of that, and we'll talk about this later, especially with the Sol issue, one of the things that we really wanted people to do was to take over their local parties. Okay, so you talk a lot about this, like it's all about the county level, and we're doing that. You know, the Free Oregon movement, it represents a greater movement of lots of different groups and organizations that are of like mind, that it's time that the people take the parties back.
That's right.
And we have that power. And so we're doing it. And I'm inspired by that. And so it's very wonderful. Now, what happens is that when you're an activist, you have to build trust with the political, I will say, for lack of better words, level. Okay. Things look different when you're running for elected office. Okay, you're not a Republican player. You are a Republican representing the Republican Party to lots of different people that have lots of different levels of knowledge. Okay, about the political happenings and the political events. The vast majority of Oregonians are simply misinformed, and so their opinions and their votes are shaped by that misinformation. And so I think it's really important that one of the things I've learned is that moving from an activist leader to a political player has been eye-opening in a lot of ways. But there was not a lot of trust from Tim Knopp and the Republican caucus in me that I could work together from that perspective. Okay, so not to say that they're not weak or they haven't been weak, because I've been very critical of Tim Knopp in the past for being weak and not putting up a fight that we elected them to put up.
Sure. And just for people that don't know what's going on, and reform them, explain to them who Tim Knopp is and what they're doing, what's currently happening right now.
Tim Knopp is the Senate Minority Leader. So he is in charge of the most amount of resources that come into the state for political offices for the entire Republican Party. Okay, he's the Senate Minority Leader, and he runs. He's one of the weaker Republicans in the Senate in terms of the CPAC rating, right? So he's just above Betsy Johnson in the past. There's reasons for that, right? He lives in a bluish purple reddish district. He has to represent his district. That's his job as a politician. And I think that's very important to recognize, right? So there's reasons why he's a little less red than some of the others.
Sure.
But the reality is I was very critical of Knopp because when I ran against Rob Wagner in my district, Rob Wagner at the time was the Democrat Senate leader. Okay. He was the majority leader, and majority leaders and minority leaders are supposed to be highly partisan individuals. Okay. They're representing their party. They need to be fierce advocates for what their party's agenda is. Now, Rob Wagner is a fierce advocate for his party's agenda. I'll tell you that right now. And Tim Knopp goes along to get along a little bit more than probably he should. So I ran against Wagner, and I did not receive a single penny from the Republican caucus in my race. And even just 20 grand or 25 grand would have helped elevate my message, which my message I think was pretty strong. And knowing it was going to be a loser race, like I'm in essentially a D20 where there's 20% more Democrats than Republicans. But if you're a non-affiliated voter and you live in South Portland, the likelihood of you being a Republican is very slim. Okay.
Sure.
So really it was probably like a D60.
Okay.
So it was essentially an unwinnable race, but now Wagner has with the walkout. Okay. Rob Wagner is now the Senate president. Okay. And Senate presidents have to be bipartisan. They have to be. And the reason why we have a legislative shutdown right now is not because of the Republicans walking out. They're walking out for good reason. And they have a slim majority, the Democrats. Prior to the midterm, they had a super majority, which means that they do not require Republicans to make a quorum. Now, quorums are required in every single legislative body in every single state in the United States for a reason, because quorums require a certain number of legislators to be present in order to pass legislation. Now, those quorums require bipartisan legislation passing. If a Republican votes no, right, but shows up, it is essentially bipartisan because they showed up. Now, all Rob Wagner had to do was work with the Republicans a little bit because the Republicans had the leverage of the walkout. They could have utilized the walkout tool to not form a quorum, to not have to pass House Bill 2002 and Senate Bill 348. Okay, these are terrible bills. One is a gender mutilation. It's a child mutilation bill. Okay, that's what it is. It
gives a state authority to basically not have to disclose anything, and they can do gender reassessment surgery to kids
exactly
in the schools. And the schools then become the state.
Exactly.
And abortions, don't forget.
And abortions with no questions asked, no parental.
Just like what they did in Washington, where even somebody from out of state can come there and said that they ran away.
100%.
Washington will scoop them up, say, no problem. You want to be a boy? Here you go.
It decriminalizes the concealment of a birth okay, to when the motive of that concealment is to not be able to allow authorities to determine if that baby was born dead or alive.
It's completely undermining parental rights and parental authority and everything under that.
It does, but it also supports sex traffickers, because who's going to bring a 10-year-old into Planned Parenthood to get an abortion, okay, when a parent doesn't know about it, all right? You got to think about these things as how these bills are going to be utilized by the criminal element, which is something that I think about. So there's really nothing good about House Bill 2002, nothing. And Senate Bill 348 is an emergency bill from a Democrat perspective to circumvent the judicial rulings on Measure 114, which was a gun ban in the state of Oregon. And so who does that help? Well, gun bans, when you take guns away from law-abiding citizens, you help criminals, okay?
Sure.
And so that's all there is to it. So these two bills is really the reason they're walking out. All Rob Wagner had to do as the Senate president was say, look, we can modify these bills or we can drop these bills, and they can pass all the legislations to their heart's content, right? Mm-hmm. That's the job of the Senate president. The Senate president has to recognize when there's a majority or a supermajority. Right now, Rob Wagner has a majority, a slim majority, not a supermajority. So Rob Wagner was leveraged to have to work with the Republicans and work across and reach across the aisle and work with Republicans. And he refused to do that. And as a Senate president, he's completely locked up the entire legislative process. And I say the entire fault of that is on Rob Wagner for not doing his job as the Senate president.
Absolutely. So the current state right now is that there's no momentum happening because of this, because Wagner's not able to. He won't work.
He won't work at all. He is so bipartisan that he will not even negotiate when he has to. Okay, this is total insanity. And what the Republicans are doing really bad right now is they're not calling that out for what it is.
It's tyranny. Well, tyranny is what it is.
Right now, it's a collapse of legislative process, which is fine. I mean, we'll all do just fine without a state government. I mean, what? The OHA gets 45% of the entire annual budget.
That's crazy.
We'll all do better without the OHA.
And the Oregon Department of Education can go, and
that can go away too.
Can go. All this over government can definitely go. You know, speaking on 2002, Mark Meek spoke recently. I don't know if you saw that, but a lot of people showed up for that. And one of the things he kept saying, well, it was bipartisan. It was bipartisan. And some of the audience said one Republican voted for it. One. He goes, and he says, doesn't that make it bipartisan? So it's these talking points that they're really good at utilizing, trying to use words. Well, it's bipartisan.
Well,
one so-called Republican, one traitor voted for it, who, by the way, I hope that the people in that district really get all over him and just basically ask him to step down, just like they need to do with Conrad.
It's the same old story. It's the same thing that the media does when they say, oh, Republicans don't like Trump and Republicans are voting against Trump and Republicans are on board. So why are you, of all people, doing this? And it's that same old story. Everybody wants to pile on. Everybody wants to be on the winning team mentality. So they say it's bipartisan to make you feel like an outsider. Right? Yeah, it's just a simple tactic. So don't fall into that, folks. Just understand. And the big thing with the show is trying to create that transparency, get the message out there, let you guys know exactly what's happening, exactly what's going on. And we're not trying to sway you either way. We want to present you the information and let you make your own decisions, because, again, we think that you're adults. We don't think you're a bunch of junior high children like Carrie McQuiston does.
Well, you know, that's a key, right? The facts, the truth, the facts.
You don't even know.
Set you free.
Just wait.
Oh yeah, it's coming.
Well, and here's the thing. I want to say this too about Tim Knopp, is that Tim Knopp took action, and I'm proud of him for that. So when the walkout,
Absolutely.
On the first day of the walkout, I went on to Instagram, and you can follow me on Instagram at Ben_EDTL. That's my Instagram. But I went on Instagram and I said, you all know how critical of Tim Knopp I've been, right? I've been just as critical of Knopp as I have as Wagner, right? Because I think it takes two to tango. And I said, but I am proud of him. He needs our support. He has my support.
Absolutely.
All of them do. And I put out an email the following day to all my followers that are on my email list. And I said, here's all the people all the Republicans and the independents that have walked out, send them letters and messages of support. And they got thousands and thousands of messages of support. And Tim Knopp called me up and he asked to work together. And so to me, that was a huge breakthrough. And that's what we're doing by taking over our party. we are creating that breakthrough to where we're able to, activists like me who are originally activists are now working with the most powerful people in the state of Oregon,
Absolutely.
In the Republican Party, and we're changing it and we're turning things around. And that right there is huge progress that we all need to be proud of.
Absolutely. And that is a great thing happening in Oregon when we know and we see the progress. And that brings me to the next point. We're just about to go to break here. So you're listening to Joshua Michael, Non-Compliant America, but I want to talk about on the next segment the difference between activists versus politician, kind of what you were talking about, and how do we blend those two, because I think that they should be married. I don't think that we should separate them, and that's kind of where we got into hot water in the first place, is thinking in our minds that there's a separation between that. The activist should be in tandem with the politician, and that's what the transparency that we need.
Government of the people, by the people, and for the people? That's
oh my
a crazy
gosh,
concept.
Imagine that.
That'll be an interesting conversation.
We'll be right back. You guys want to keep going?
Whenever you're ready.
Broadcasting from the former state of Oregon in FEMA Region
Should I move
10,
Dan back? Because we talked
it's
about
your
possibly-
host,
Oh, yeah.
Joshua Michael.
No, I just want to...
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to Joshua Michael, Non-Compliant America. We're recording this the day before because I wanted to make sure that it got uploaded. There is a conspiracy going around that my show was spiked last weekend. I assure you it was not. There was a technical difficulty, and I'm a technical guy. So I assure you I did look into it. No, they did not spike my biggest show that I've ever done. I promise you, it was not done. We had a record number of traffic on the post on the Recall Saul. We know Oregonians are wanting it. We are wanting change. We are wanting that activist turned politician. We are wanting to get behind the grassroots people. So a couple things I want to cover before we get back to our guests here. So there was an interesting post that came across my board the other day, and this was from the great McQuiston. And she was just basically dogging the success that we had on the Recall Saul event in the Berrien County. We all know that Joel was trying to carry water for them and basically acting as a dictator throughout the whole process. You have to submit your questions with a piece of paper, and then he was holding back the 3 questions. We already know that if you guys listened to the last show. So he did that. Then he's like, oh, well, they weren't relevant. Well, if you want to be an open, transparent, if you want to be the chair, if you want to be the head guy, you want to let the people speak and let it breathe, right? So we had all these questions about Saul. We really don't care to ask him questions. We just want him out, right? He doesn't need to defend himself at this point. We can just look back and say, yep, no, it wasn't working. You made a good run, buddy, but it's time to go. So McQuiston responded and basically insulted a ton of just good-hearted, regular people. They aren't career politicians. They don't have all the answers. They don't, they're not in beds, like these guys are. And she responded and said, we had a bunch of junior high Recall Saul t-shirts, which I think were amazing.
Fantastic,
They
actually.
were beautiful. And guess what? Those guys were sweating the whole time. So if that wasn't effective, then I don't know what is. But it also says, hey, we had a statement without having to make a statement that, hey, we're here. You guys aren't going to get away with this nonsense and this business as usual. You're not going to be able to bully us. You're not going to be able to intimidate us. You can write all these posts about Facebook or on Facebook. Yeah, there might be some people that'll listen, but nobody's on Facebook anymore. And the fact that you're making these public statements on Facebook only shows how irrelevant you guys really are. So that's my response to that. Not a big deal. This is a short segment. We were talking with Ben and Don earlier about I was really fascinated by the activist turned politician and the switch and the red wave, the real red wave that's coming, not the nonsense red wave that's being fabricated, the real one, the real grassroots people such as yourself. You were asleep in 2019. You had no idea what's going on. You were breeding off the success, all the Trump success that we had, right? Everybody was just, oil prices were down. Everything was great. So in that, with COVID, I think it was a great awakening to force people to wake up and realize, hey, we can't give all these people the power, and why are we not getting more engaged, right, in our local communities? And so fast forward 3 years, here you are now, sitting here with me, you're talking to the head minority leader Knope, having conversations with him. You're actively engaged. He's listening to you, which is very important. It's humbling for somebody that's been in office for so long. Suddenly now they're listening to the grassroots, because I think they're starting to realize that's where the real power is, because we are starting to realize that's where the real power is, right? And this is a congratulations to all the people in Oregon that are engaging these political people and getting engaged in the space. I know, Don, you've had huge successes in Clackamas County in raising all the PCPs and just completely overhauling your county. And we're seeing a massive surge happening with that. And it's beautiful. We're going to do that in Marion County. We're going to do that in Polk County. We're going to do that in Washington County. Because
100%.
Because it's getting so bad that the only way we can go is up. And, when you have nothing, you're going to be like, okay, it's time to go. We got nothing to lose. And
we have nothing to lose.
Absolutely. And these people who have been there for 25 years, 20, 30 years, whatever, and they've just been business as usual. Yeah, we're going to intimidate these guys. We're going to blacklist these guys. We're going to block the school board members. I don't know if you know, but these guys blocked school board members from coming on my show like 2 days before they were supposed to come, and said, oh, there's a scheduling conflict. It's like, no. You guys are just trying to curate things because they don't like truth. They don't like open transparency. But that's what they are. That's the old guard trying to prevent the new guard from coming in. This is what it's all about. This is the American system, is the active engagement from the common citizen coming in, engaging in local politics, making local change. We get to decide what we want to see in our schools. We get to decide where we want to spend our money. We should have a choice in that. And that's the importance of getting with these elected officials, getting in these PCP situations, and just reaching out to these guys. Hey, we're supporting you on this. Or, hey, we don't think this is a good idea. We don't want our gun rights taken. We don't want our kids sexually mutilated and inducted into these social welfare programs, teaching them how to be a boy and teaching them how to be a girl. We don't need all of that, and we don't want that. And so in that, there's just a lot of momentum happening, and that's why I really respect you, Ben, for all the work that you've done and getting up to this far. I mean, what's the plan for the future? I mean, what can people do? Where can they go to support you? Is Instagram the key for people to reach you right now?
It's a great one. Yeah, Instagram, Ben_EDTL. And then my website at benedtl.com. You can also sign up right there. So I put a lot of information out via email because that's where you can really have uncensored communication. But yeah, I love what you're saying. And I can tell you that from an activist perspective, things do look different from a political perspective. They just do. And I think the fundamental reason for that is that once you become an elected official or you run for elected office, you're also asking to govern Democrats, independents, libertarians, and everybody, okay? And so I think you have to respect that. And I was raised in the inner city of Portland, okay? Born and raised and by liberals. And I look at myself as a classical liberal. I think we're all classical liberals, okay? The reason I'm a Republican is because I firmly believe and support our Constitution as a republic, in that the majority cannot take away the rights of a minority. And I firmly respect that and will fight for that. But I also believe in democratic representation. Look, my mother-in-law is the mayor of a small town called Fossil, Oregon. And she's a Democrat. She's a liberal. But she's done really great things for the town. Improved the library, brought internet, and all these cool things, right? That liberals do. I've lived in Portland my entire life, and I've never left because I like the liberal city.
Yeah.
Okay? And so we have to have respect for both sides. What we have in Oregon right now is a system of complete corruption. And that's why Knope's reached out to me, because he doesn't even trust people on his own side. And we can talk more about that around the corner.
We'll be right back.
And now, live from an undisclosed location in FEMA Region 10, it's your host, Joshua Michaels.
That's right, baby. We are back. Bringing it segment. We got 12 minutes of jam-packed information. We got Ben Edtl and Don Powers in the house today. Thank you very much for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe to my show. It can be on all forms of podcasts, either Apple, Spotify, or if you're listening on 104.3, make sure to go to noncompliantamerica.com. And my communication of choice right now is Twitter. You can find me at noncompliantus. Follow me on Twitter. There's a lot of things, uncensored information, great content, both locally, nationally, internationally, and just some strange anomalies that I like to post because there's a lot of interesting things going on with AI and all the stuff that I'm very passionate about. And so I'm just trying to inform the public as much as possible. The best thing we can do is just be awake. Once you're awake, you then can make your own conscious decisions on what and how you want to prepare yourself. And more importantly, you're not swayed by the nonsense going on around us, and you're more grounded. So I just think that it's really important to do that. And so that's my message to you today. So Ben, we're talking, before we went to break, we were talking about the different things with Knope and how that's all going on. I know that there's a ton of corruption coming out in regards to the LaMotta thing. I know the FTX, the Democrats got a bunch of money from FTX. That was all funneled through Ukraine. I mean, there's so much corruption here. It is the grassroots now that are starting to take the lead because we don't know who to trust. We don't know how deep does a rabbit hole really go?
Well, I trust no one. Okay. Trust no one. But I'll tell you this, the rabbit hole goes very deep. Think about FTX. I mean, I love that you brought FTX up because the Democrat Party of Oregon took $500,000 from a company who the CEO pled guilty of stealing billions of dollars from people and then giving it to the Democrat Party. Okay. And the Democrats of Oregon, they lied on where that money came from on Orstar, and then they still haven't given the money back. And then on top of that, you've got a corrupt company called LaMotta, and LaMotta came from Florida. These guys are operating on the black market. Okay. They're paying Shamia Fagan, who's the Secretary of State, who's a crook.
Former Secretary of State. Let's be really clear.
She had to resign, but we have lawsuits against her for election corruption. And now she was getting paid $30,000 for every state license delivered to LaMotta that her agency directly oversees OLCC.
In addition to that, she was getting a monthly stipend of $10,000 a month on top of that,
which is fine. That part's fine. Okay, it's okay. It's okay to be a contractor if you're but you can't be getting paid $30,000. And this company LaMotta owes millions of dollars in state taxes. But here's the thing: Rob Wagner took $40,000 in cash that never went through a bank account for a PAC. They just said it came from this PAC, but it never hit a bank account because it was cash. Okay. And then Tina Kotek took $270,000 and $67,000 went to what's her face? Fagan. And so you've got right there is $1 million. Okay. $1 million in black market crooked funding that we know of. Correct. Okay. And how much are they putting in their pockets? Like, who owns these people? It's not us. And that's the biggest problem.
And that would explain more when we go, we fight, we write emails, we're protesting, we're doing all this 100%. Stuff, and they don't do and move an inch. And they continue on their path as business as usual, and they're just unmoved by the public, and they're unresponsive to any public response.
100%.
So we need to rename them from public officials.
100%, right? So the biggest issue that we have is we have to have truth and we have to fight corruption, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm in this fight right now to stop political corruption in Oregon. When you look at the legislative framework of our state, it is designed to support cartel operations, human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking.
Just like our election system. I mean, our election system in Oregon is designed to permit fraud. Everything that they're doing in another state, over here they, no ID. Over here they do mail-in voting. Over here they do, et cetera, et cetera. Anything you see in other states that they're doing to facilitate the fraud that happens in those states, we're doing every single one of them here.
They get it from us.
Every single one of them, we're doing it here. So that gets to your point, which is the fraud, the corruption is all the way from our election systems to all this money. I mean, think about what you just said. People, think just for a minute about it. Take a moment to digest what you just heard. Massive corruption admitted by the Democrats in our state of taking piles of cash, hundreds of thousands of dollars, corrupt money from cartel money is basically what it amounts to, right? You're talking about from the cannabis industry, which, by the way, is a fabulous industry when it's done above board, and it's a great industry for Oregon, and it's done a lot of good things for Oregon. But there's also a lot of corruption within that drug industry, and that has to be dealt with. And when you talk about piles of cash, you don't have to be Stevie Wonder to see that there's a problem here, right? Anytime you're dealing with politicians and piles of cash, right? What does that make you think of? Breaking Bad?
Makes me think of
something
Obama
like that?
shipping billions in cash.
Yeah,
to Iran.
right. An entire container plane full of
Cash.
pallets of cash.
Pallets of cash.
Yeah, and we left, and it goes all the way up to the federal government, because our governments and the current federal government, the Biden administration right now, like, we're not going to be able to call the FBI to investigate these people, right? So we're in a really bad situation here. Look, we left all this material, all these tanks and planes and missiles and stuff like that in Afghanistan, that they all sold it for billions of dollars to the Russians. Now we're fighting the Russians. When you look at what's happened with the Democrat Party, and this is why I said earlier, Democrat people, they're not that's not the problem. Okay, the Democrat Party has been hijacked and taken over by frauds and criminals.
It's called communists,
right?
Is what's happening.
Exactly, and that's exactly what's happening. And so what Free Oregon, for example, the original mission for Free Oregon was not just to get Republicans active in their parties, but get Democrats active in their parties too. We have to agree, and we have to come together. We have to be unified. They do not want us people to be unified in any way, shape, or form. And we can unify around anti-corruption. And so that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because I thought the thing that was going to unify all of us is what was happening in the schools, how they're trying to over-sexualize these kids. And yet that didn't even unify and activate the Republican or conservative base, let alone the liberal base. Everyone should be concerned about that. What are you doing, people? Why has this not just caused you to just have outrage? And yet, just today there's a protest. Some people are going to go protest another drag show at a public facility today. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
What's it gonna take for you to say enough is enough?
Well, it's that
your children. That's not enough.
It's that blitzkrieg, but it also demonstrates the importance that we talk about as getting involved, right? Because it's easy to sit on the sidelines and be like, "Oh, okay, well, that sucks," and I don't know. It's so overwhelming. There's so much going on. That's what they want, is that overabundance and overwhelming of information, to where if you start notching out just little pieces and go and get involved here and get involved here, become a PCP, right? Go to some meetings, go see, do and stick to your zone of that is tangible for your lifestyle. And eventually there, just like a muscle, you keep exercising it, it'll grow. You'll find out who the players are. You'll find out how things work and everything else. That is the American system. That's the American way. Mm-hmm. That's how we really make a change, right?
We can all do something, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's the idea we have different skill sets.
Yes.
You have a different skill set, but sitting around doing nothing is not acceptable any longer. You know,
it is not acceptable.
And here's one of the
There's
problems
no more
we have.
sidelines.
You know, this mess that we're in, and we were alluding to it earlier. The Republicans haven't done much about it either. I mean, we are in this position because the Republican Party and, frankly, the public has been complacent and not doing anything to fight it. And now they don't know what to do with us. Now that we are alive and
actively
we're vocal
engaged.
and actively engaged. Thank you. That they don't know what to do with us. You know, for me, for example, you know, oh, you haven't been around, you don't know the history, you're too new to this, and you don't know what you're talking about, and that's one of the critiques, coming back directly at me in full force right now. And it's like, I don't,
But does that even matter?
It doesn't. That's the point.
Don't we all breathe the same air?
Right.
Yeah.
Who cares? It's kind of better that I don't know where the bodies are buried. Right?
It's very good.
Because now you're going to go into things, right? You come in from a green perspective, and then you have your own skill set that you're able to bring to the table. If we continue on the path that we do, if we all jump on the hamster wheel and go the same way that we've done, we're going to always get what we've always gotten. We need a shakeup. We need a change. We need to recall Solomon YUE. That just needs to happen, right? And we also need to contend against these people like McQuiston, who's propping up for the future next year. Mark my words, she's going to be running for something. Right? That's what all this is about.
It's been, even the whole constitutional carry petition that's going on 100%. Right now. Hey, it sounds great, right? Who's not for that? Well, we know who's not for it, but I mean, right? Sounds great. But you know what it is? It's a signature gathering publicity stunt. 100%. And it's just like trying to say, imagine trying to put out a petition right now that says, I'm going to put out a petition that says, I want to outlaw abortion in the state of Oregon.
Sure.
And a whole bunch of people are going to sign it. Then I gather a whole bunch of signatures. That's everybody in the world knows it's not going to pass. Why am I doing it if I know it's not going to pass? What is my objective?
And then Joel's going to do a big email blast with with all their emails that they gathered.
Oh yeah, that's a great list. I'm glad I have that now because I can connect to them all, directly myself.
So impeachable offense.
But when we talk about that, within the party, this grassroots movement that Ben is involved with, and the things that he's done,
100%.
the Take Back America group, and what they've done in Clackamas County and other counties for that matter, and how that has all spread and gone viral. Like 17, I heard, different counties in Oregon have completely flopped their Republican leadership into what really is grassroots teams and movements, which is fantastic. And now we the people are finally stepping up. And what we realize is change has to happen within our party. There's been so much division for so long that we're not getting anything done. We look foolish to national because we don't have our own act together.
Yeah.
And right, and we've got one faction over here pulling for this, and one faction over here pulling for this, and this faction over here just doing whatever the heck they want because they've got their consultants and their money's coming in. They're all greasing each other's wheel and they're laundering their money through their consulting groups and whatever. And you got other groups that are just worried about their own personal power and enriching themselves through their position, right? I believe that's what's happened with Solomon YUE. He's our national committeeman. And what has he brought to Oregon? He claims this big long list of quote celebrities that he's brought in. But let's look at that. Let's look at that in my short tenure here being involved. Who did he bring in that he brags about having brought in last year, for example? Oh, Kelly Ward from Arizona. Well, he didn't bring her here for the ORP, brought her here as a fundraiser for Carrie McQuiston. Same thing with Lee from, right? And the people that he brings in are there to somebody that he wants to promote, not for the party.
That's
and
right.
that has to change. So let's get to that.
Recall Saul. We'll be right back.
All of this money. Yeah, I know it's rude to be bragging. They never catching us slacking. Me and my buddy, we working hard for this money.
All right, welcome back, folks. Joshua Michael, Noncompliant America. Thank you very much for joining us. Ben had to go, but we still have Don on the boards here, and we just got a last-minute call with Dan Mason, who has served the chair of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission since 2021, to which he was appointed a regular member in 2017. He's a community manager of the largest multifamily communities in the Portland metro area, has been president of the Multifamily Northwest Housing Association Board of Directors since 2019. He grew up in rural Oregon, attending Umpqua Community College, currently lives in Hillsboro, where he served on the city's budget committee for the last 6 years. He's earned a reputation for fairness and nonpartisanship, which works very well within the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, which he currently is a part of. Dan, thank you very much for joining us. How are you today?
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So we've been talking over the past couple segments, we've been talking a lot about this recall in regards to Solomon, and I know we can't really get into it too much with you, but you said that you would be willing to put your hat in the ring should this recall happen as the new national committeeman for the state of Oregon.
Yes, that's correct. Well, and one thing that you left off my bio, I was part of the Central Committee for 10 years, 5 different terms. During that process, I had ran for the Oregon legislature in 2014. And in that period, it was one of the top targeted races where I raised about $430,000. My opponent raised about $600,000. So it was $1 million race that year.
Wow.
And after, not coming up, or at least we came up short, instead of just walking away, I was still on our county party exec team and recognized that there was some infrastructure issues, as there are in a lot of county parties and in the state. I ended up doing a fundraising dinner that was turned out to be a annual event, which is the Reagan Dinner in Washington County.
Nice.
And we've hosted everybody from, past governors, current governors, a former vice president, a former secretary of state in the last 8 years.
That's awesome. Dan, or Don, do you have a question?
I was going to say, Dan, I just want to emphasize that. So you've been doing that with putting on the Reagan. I mean, pretty much it's been. I know there's a lot of people involved in it, but you've been pretty much the principal involved in putting on those Reagan dinners for Washington County. And I'll say that they have been wildly successful just from the outside looking in. So congratulations on that hard work.
No, thank you. No, in 2015, 2015 when we did the first one. And you put on a fundraiser, you don't think it's going to be an annual event. And, I pitched our exec team and I was like, we need to bring in some national speakers. We need to try and get some sponsorships. We didn't have a venue. We didn't have vendors. We didn't have a lot of different things it takes to put on an event. And by the end of it, we had two former county party chairs that had been around Washington County for a lot of years. And they said out of 18 years, that was the most successful county party fundraiser we'd ever had. And that parlayed into, the next year, and to the point where we started bringing in, heavy hitters. We brought in former Governor Scott Walker. We brought in Governor Kristi Noem. We had an opportunity to host former Vice President Mike Pence. And then last year we brought in former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. And, I think the gross fundraising that's taken place just through that dinner that I've, headed up was over $500,000.
That's great, Dan. Hey, a real question. One of the kind of the topics of the show today is we're talking about kind of that infusion between, grassroots activists versus the politicians. Are you seeing a shift happening within the Republican Party, seeing more engagement from the public? You seeing some green people getting involved and things like that? What kind of things are you seeing on the ground with your day-to-day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, I've got 21, 22 years of being involved in the political process. And there's always a little bit of a cycle. You saw a lot of that in 2010 in the Tea Party. But I do think you've seen in the last couple of years, definitely a different level of engagement in the state of Oregon. More people dialed into what's going on at your local level. And I think that's part of what's driven, and the senators to our Oregon state senators taking such a hard stand against what they're seeing down there, to where, basically the whole caucus is risking their ability to run again because they feel so strongly, rightly so.
Absolutely. And they have a GoFundMe currently right now because the Democrats are trying to find them and they're challenging it in the courts. And so they have the individual senators they have their own GoFundMes set up for legal fees to defend against that. So in that, what would your advice be? Because we got just a few minutes left and I really appreciate your time coming on. What would your advice be to the grassroots people, to the local people on how can they get involved? How can they help you? How can they contact you? What's the best thing you think currently right now we should spend and focus our time and energy on?
Well, I do think, in the words of Senator Tim Knopp, who spoke at the ORP dinner a couple weeks ago, it's like, look, we need your text messages, we need your positive affirmations, we need, these state senators are putting a lot on the line, and frankly, and I talked to a few of them this week, they are hearing it from the other side as well. Their constituents are calling them and lighting them up. You ought to get in the building and do their job, because some people don't understand that there's a legal meeting. There's a legal meeting process, and quorum and having the right amount of people as part of a legal meeting is part of that. And preventing an actual meeting to take place is actually doing your job. And so articulating that properly to constituents who may disagree, and they're just getting one side from the media that's pressing them and saying, hey, look, you guys are just keeping you're keeping Oregon from doing business, and we're doing all these different things. In reality, by not showing up, they are serving the state in ways that the general public couldn't even understand.
And they're serving they're serving the people. They're doing the people's will, because the people don't want this to happen. They don't want this to go through. But as you know, in this captured state of dysfunction and corruption going on everywhere, this is the move that they have. So getting behind them, that's very important. Dan, thank you very much. How do people reach out to you? When I guess if this recall sees it through, how are people going to reach out to you and start supporting you on your push for this seat?
No, I appreciate that. People can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn, and my email, mason701@hotmail.com. Happy to hear any comments, pro and con.
Well, Dan, so and I want to be on record. You got my vote, and I hope that has some wings out there in the ether.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate that very much.
All right.
Very much.
Thanks, Dan. Have a great day, okay?
You too. Thank you.
All right.
That was nice.
Okay, so we got just a few minutes left, and just want to wrap a couple things up. A lot of packed information. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to share this to all your family and friends, because again, we can't do this without you. We can't emphasize enough the importance of the grassroots spreading. Things need to go viral. Things need to get heard. And just so you know, folks, just so you know, as you heard from Ben here earlier, even Don himself, myself, everybody, we're new to this in a way that we're not the career politicians that you're used to. We're not the career people that we've had, the business as usual. We are prime examples of how you can get involved and start affecting change within your counties, within your states, within your systems. Within your school boards and all of that stuff. It just takes you getting involved. I think personally, number one, becoming a PCP is so important. But if you got any questions or you want to know what's going on, reach out to me at Twitter, at NoncompliantUS. Don, how do people get a hold of you?
Call me, email me. I'm always available. I do have email, which is OregonElectionIntegrity@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at noncompliant and the digit 1.
Thanks, Don. And let's not forget all the people that sacrificed for all the future days. All their days have been sacrificed, and make a very memorable Memorial Weekend and remember all of those who lost their lives.
Thank you for that. Yeah, they sacrificed all their tomorrows for this day.
Yep. Have a great weekend, folks.